Special Operations, Covert Ops, Espionage, The Team House, with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
Hey folks, this is episode 386 of The Team House. I'm Jack Murphy with our guest today, the author of Afghanistan Sniper, Ted Shirley. He served in the British military from 2007 to 2013 in the Royal Welsh Fusiliers, giving them sniper support, and deployed to Afghanistan, and then wrote this book and now does some public speaking about his struggles and recovery from post-traumatic stress. Ted, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ted, the first question I always ask our guests, tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how that took you towards military service.
Yeah, absolutely. So my dad was in the Navy and he was in the Falklands War. So always, I've had all these stories growing up as a kid. All this life of adventure. So I very much wanted a bit of that for myself. So then various family members and stuff had been in, and it just sort of led straight away really from school. I knew I was always going to go in the forces.
Okay, so it really was, like a family tradition for you.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. I had this sense of pride about me that I wanted to do something for my country at that age.
And so what part of the UK did you grow up in as a kid?
So I'm in North Wales. So we're just a tiny little bit on the left, where the best people come from, though.
Good weather, I take it?
Say again, sorry?
Good weather?
Oh, yeah. It's currently raining sideways.
Okay, so 2007, presumably after high school, you go into the Army. Tell us about kind of that process. Did you enlist as an infantryman?
Yeah, so I started off in the infantry, and then very quickly I found myself after training and getting to my unit. I was deployed to Afghanistan straight away on my first tour. Our unit was based out in Cyprus at the time. So it was quite a cool introduction to army life for me. And then once we came back, that's when I then got selected to go on the sniper course, and that's where my journey really began, to be honest. Yeah.
Was your unit in Cyprus as part of like the UN peacekeeping sort of construct that exists there?
Partly, yeah. We were mainly there as a quick reaction force to the Middle East. So there was obviously a big RAF base there, Akatiri. So that's what we would do. It'd be a last minute call, and then off we'd go.
Gotcha. And what was that first tour to Afghanistan like for you as a young infantryman?
Yeah, for my first tour, it was okay. It was enough. I saw and did enough to get by and say that that gave me the full experience. We were in a town called Musakala, so it was quite a hot town. But yeah, it was a good introduction. The first time I got shot at was I thought it was hilarious, to be honest. I couldn't stop laughing. It was quite a surreal experience. But one I will not forget. I was talking funny enough, to another guy that I know who was a sniper, and he was there on that day. It was both our first tours, and we were just howling about how funny this was. It was the dirt kicking up around you, and you sort of would burst into this uncontrollable fit of laughter. It wasn't nerves. It was more happiness. Like, yes, we're actually doing it.
And how did that day pan out for you guys as, you're taking effective fire?
Oh, yeah, it was actually a cheeky day. It ended in a 30-kilometre tab across his plateau back with no rations, no supplies, no nothing. It was a good one. It was, like I said, the full experience.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what was sort of like the unit's mission that took you guys out there?
So we were looking after a place called Roshan Tower, which was a big mobile phone unit on the top of it. And it was quite a hot spot for Taliban activity. So we were looking after that initially. And then we were to head towards this place called Mount Doom, which I just thought was the coolest name ever.
That sounds ominous.
Like there's going to be some super bad guy in Mount Doom. So we headed down the wadi towards there. And it got a bit more kinetic than I think any of us realised it was going to. We ended up getting a little bit cut off for a couple of days. And then there was a special forces unit the other side of the wadi as well, and they had the exact same thing. One of their guys got took out. So yeah, it was a bit of a cheeky couple of days, and it was boiling hot as well. Oh my god,
Was
it was hot.
this Helmand Province?
Yeah, in Helmand, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know the Brits were there quite a bit, and Helmand also one of the most dangerous, hottest parts of the country.
Yeah, it was where I spent all my time and everyone that I was with. Like, we were always in Helmand.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And how long were you deployed there that first time?
That first time was 4 months. Being obviously part of this quick reaction force, the time length would vary
Gotcha.
for everybody. So after we'd done that, we were only in Cyprus for another couple of months, and we got returned then back to the UK, back to the rainy weather, and that's where we stayed.
That was like kind of a normal rotation of units that go in and out of Cyprus.
Yeah, it goes every sort of 2 years or so.
Gotcha.
Everyone moves about, and then you find everyone trying to go, oh, I need to actually stay here because
Yeah, once you get settled in and everything, yeah, you're reluctant to leave.
Get a little bit used to the weather for sure.
Yeah. So when you come back from your first deployment, what was sort of your interest in becoming a sniper? Did someone recommend that you go that route, or was it something you pursued?
To be honest, it happened by pure chance. It was something that I really wanted to do. I always had wanted to be a sniper, obviously seeing all the films that we all sort of grew up watching and stuff. It was just my absolute. And then one day I was on guard duty and got talking to somebody, and they said, oh, there's actually a space that needs filling on the pre-selection course. So I was like, whoa, put my name down. I really want to be a sniper. I'll go for this. This is my dream. Let's do it. So that was it. That's how it started. And then you sort of do a pre-selection phase in the British Army, and then those that rise to the top of that are then sent away then to attend the course, which is 6 months long.
Holy shit. I didn't realize that was such an extensive course they sent you guys to.
Yeah. There's a reason we're good.
Yeah. No kidding. So tell us about this course. I mean, they must have, within 6 months, they can teach you really a lot. Hey guys, I want to tell you about the sponsor for tonight's show, which is TrueWerk. They make performance workwear that's built like it matters, because it does. In the fall, the weather changes real fast. It can be hot, cold, wet, windy, sometimes all during one shift. So you want performance workwear that will carry you through the entire day, like these pants that I'm wearing here today. TrueWerk was founded by a trade professional who is tired of wet, heavy gear weighing him down. TrueWerk set out to make workwear that keeps professionals comfortable, capable, and ready for whatever the day throws at them. They're designed with advanced performance fabrics for lasting comfort, all-day mobility, and year-round job site protection. Every piece is tested on job sites with trade professionals, so when conditions change, you're still ready. This product right now has over 50,000 five-star reviews from professionals in every trade and every climate. So I really enjoy wearing these pants. I think you will too. I hope you'll go check them out. This is the T2 work pant. It's durable, flexible, water resistant. The thing I really like is that they're stretchy. Like, this is something like you could even like actually work out in if you really wanted to, but certainly during the workday when you're bending over and crouching over and picking things up, these are very comfortable. It also has like some like a lining inside, so it's comfortable, around your hips and like where your belt would go. They also make the M3 Whoopee hoodie, which is wind resistant, insulated, and very comfortable. And they make the Tower Parka, which is a fully weatherproof and insulated jacket designed for cold, wet job sites. And they also have a line of flannel shirts that I hope you guys will go and take a look at. So upgrade your day with workwear built like it matters. Get 15% off your first order at TrueWerk.com with the code HOUSE. That's TrueWerk.com. And the promotion code to get 15% off is HOUSE, HOUSE. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, okay. So it starts off, the first 3 months are very much the classroom phase, the learning the theoretical side of shooting, ballistics, how a round flies through the air and what affects it. And then correlating with that is the range days where you're constantly all day, every day, hitting targets at, starting at 600 meters and then moving backwards. So from the offset, the learning curve is very steep. If you fall behind that learning curve, then you've got no chance to catch up, and you sort of off you go. You fall to the wayside. So the numbers reduce really, really quickly. Once that 3-month phase is over, you then move to the Brecon Beacons of South Wales, which is obviously where the SAS do their selection phase. So it's a nasty area with some horrendous weather. So you go there, and this is where the tactical phase starts then. So this is where we would learn about the observation techniques, camouflage and concealment, into all these different things, how we'd actually physically go about being snipers and moving ourselves, being invisible, getting into all these fire positions and whatnot. And then these all culminate then in a test week at the end of that 6-month course, which involves things like solo navigations, solo night navigations, sniper history tests, which was actually quite a big part of it that I didn't realize was going to be a part of it. It felt a little bit like high school again, but we really enjoyed it. It was good, and it taught us how sort of creative the job role of being a sniper was going to be. Coming up with all these different funny fire positions and just exciting ways of becoming invisible. It just really resonated.
The ghillies were like Scottish hunters, right? Where the ghillie suit comes from?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so the ghillie suits, they used to be these shrouds that they'd wear as they'd go off hunting. Yeah, it was a different story, but me and one of the lads ended up winning a snipers competition, and that the prize was to go off and go hunting a stag in the Scottish Highlands, but we got too drunk and we missed the bus. Typical British squaddy fashion.
And when you were in sniper school, what is the platform that they teach students on?
How do you mean?
Which weapon system?
Oh, the weapon system. So you start off with the L96, which was for us at the time just about transitioning out. That was the old sniper rifle. So it was a bit of a case of if you can do it with these, you'll be able to do it with the better ones. And then once we got into phase 2, then we had the 338s, which was one hell of a weapon system. My God, it was heavy, but you could place a round wherever you wanted it.
Right.
It was incredible.
Yeah, I can't say if I've ever fired a 338, but I know the Canadians used them for many years. You guys, and I think very slowly the American military has gotten on board with the program.
Yeah, it was just a sort of happy medium, I think, for the Brits between the sort of the 50 cal, and the 338, the L96, sorry, was a 7.62. So obviously, having that heavier round to be able to get those distances, but they were initially for helicopters for shooting engine blocks out for stopping cars. And they went, the lads will be able to carry them. It'd be all right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the infantry. You can carry heavy stuff. I've been told that the round fires very flat, which I guess is what you were saying, that you can put rounds on target at range.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, we to the point where once we finished the 6-month course and we sort of went away as snipers in our unit and did our own sort of pre-deployment training. At 1,000 meters, we were hitting 10 pence pieces, which is you sort of look about a quarter, that sort of size coin, and we'd hit them every single time. Boom, boom, boom.
Favorite and least favorite part of sniper school?
Favorite part was the stalks. I loved doing the stalks. worst part was weathering the ghillie suit. That was a tradition I'm glad you only go through once. Just crawling through.
Oh, the ghillie wash. Yeah.
Yeah. That was not fun. The instructors got a little bit too much enjoyment out of that one.
Yeah. It's like their little assessment and selection program that they run out there.
Yeah.
And so you finish the 6 months, graduate, and then you mentioned you go into pre-deployment training.
Yes. So this what happened at this point? So there was about 8 of us left from the course now at this point, which started off, I don't know, over 100. So we've then broken down into 5 of us were from my battalion, which was the 1st battalion, and then 3 of the lads were from the 2nd battalion of the Royal Welsh. Those 3 deployed pretty much straight away to Afghanistan on separate operations to what we were going to be doing. We then deployed to Kenya. We went to Kenya for 2 months pre-deployment training, which was absolutely incredible. It was something I'm never going to forget in my life. But while the other 3 were over there, and these were, the closest of brothers you can get, one of them was killed by an IED, and it started this process for me especially, but for all of us. I know it hit us hard. So our life of pre-deployment had a bit of a different tinge to it. It became no longer this great fun enjoyment thing. It switched to, we're going to war now. This is going to happen. Our reality tilted a little bit. So everything sort of got very serious from that point after Kenya.
And what sort of training did you do to prepare for this deployment? And also, why don't you explain to us a little bit about how a sniper in the British infantry supports the ground troops and how they conduct operations?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So the idea with going to Kenya was the altitude and obviously the weather being so warm. Us being in soggy Britain, we don't get too much heat to train in. So getting over there and getting to do that was incredible. And the scale of these exercises, they were live firing exercises where we'd have real artillery firing in and Lynx helicopters coming in and these mock villages built up. And it was as cool as it was ever going to get. It was real close to the real deal. So our job as snipers, because there was only so many, well, how many was there? There was 5 of us split between a battalion of about 800 men. So we were split thin between everybody. So our job roles were quite filled with pressure. Most of the time we'd initially go out on patrols with the guys on the ground, and we would sort of be acting like ground troops. And when things kicked off, we'd climb up to a rooftop and get into a position or something. And then it gradually changed to a point where we would then overwatch patrols as they were going out, and that became much more efficient for us. But we were working alone. We didn't have anyone being spotters for us. So it was quite a high pressure job.
Yeah, it's an interesting change in role. At least the vision a lot of Americans have, I find, is from stuff about the Vietnam War, that snipers operate independently by themselves in a sniper spotter role, crawling around in a ghillie suit. But throughout the war on terror, it was more like we were direct action snipers, where you're actually supporting infantry on the ground.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, exactly. You know yourself. It was sort of almost a safety blanket, I think, in a way.
Right.
I know it brought a lot of confidence to the lads that I was overwatching, that I was overwatching. And it did quite a few of the times between us snipers. It panned out quite well that we'd be able to spot things that were happening in the distance. For instance, one of the lads spotted someone bashing through a wall, making a murder hole with a Dushka anti-aircraft gun on the other side of it. And the lads were patrolling down this road, and they were about to get the good news. And he managed to call it in, and it got dealt with, luckily. But yeah, it became we very much we proved we were worth the training. Let's put it that way, for sure.
Yeah.
And we were absolutely an asset.
Yeah, I mean, this was an operation I was on in Iraq where one of our snipers, and I won't say his name here, but he's a great guy. He was doing our overwatch for the assault teams that were coming into the structure, and two guys got up on the rooftop. This is in the middle of the night, and they were about to maneuver and start shooting down on the assault team, and he whacked both of those guys right off. And when the assaulters got up there and search, these dudes had like fighting positions with like RPKs and magazines, frag grenades. Like they were ready to roll, man. So the snipers saved us, you know.
Saved all that.
Yeah, exactly like your story about them spotting the Dishka. That stuff matters.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it became. I don't think, to be honest, any of us really realised how important we would be out there. We wanted to be snipers and we wanted to be doing that job, but I don't think we actually realised, whoa, we're changing battles here.
Right.
You know, we're doing things that are actually changing the way the course of this thing is moving. To the point where from hearing what our interpreters would listen to on Taliban radio frequencies and things like that, we knew that they were scared of us. They wouldn't move if they knew that one of us was in the area, which was a great feeling to have, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Force multiplier.
That's it. Yeah, we had these T-shirts made with force multiplier on the back. We loved them.
So you get you're over in Afghanistan now as a sniper. Back to Helmand Province.
Yeah, back to Helmand Province. Yeah, we were rotating around a place called Nadi Ali, another one called Babaji. These were hold. These were the numbers were in the hundreds.
Numbers of enemy that you were encountering.
Yeah. It was they were training in the area. They were doing all sorts. This was very much where they were comfortable. So our tour became kinetic very early on, and everyone, out of all of the entire battalion, everyone was fighting hard.
And so there's a couple stories that you relate in your book that I'd love to ask you about. One of them being when you faced off against an enemy sniper.
Yes,
tell us how
absolutely.
That came about.
Yeah. This is a day that my therapist got sick of hearing about. I think this was honestly this was terrifying. This experience, and every single one of us that were there were changed from this experience. So what happened in the past few weeks? We're about a quarter of the way through the tour at this point, which was a 6-month tour. Enemy snipers had been running wild in the area, and they'd been strategically taking out British troops, and they'd been doing a good job of it. So task forces, were formed, and a sort of counter sniper operation began, which meant that all of us snipers were brought back together for the first time. We were all kind of
interesting.
What's going on here? And there's definitely something up where we're going to be doing something good. So we were staying in this little hangar on the outskirts of pretty much a ghost town at this point. But what had happened was a platoon of British troops had been stranded and pinned down by an enemy sniper. He was a foreign hired gun, it turned out, potentially Chechnyan, but we weren't 100% on that. And our job was basically to go and collect these troops who'd lost quite a few of their own, and hopefully take out this sniper that had them pinned down. So we moved in. It was about probably a 10-kilometer patrol in. And when we got there, we got through the compound gates, and I can remember just seeing their faces. The troops that had been there for however long, they looked broken and exhausted. They looked like they had been fighting for their lives. And there was 2 tower positions. So us snipers took ourselves to one side. Our commanders went and spoke with their commanders. And we came up with this plan that myself and one of the lads, Gray, were going to climb up this tower. And then one of the other lads, Benny and AD, were going to climb up another one. So we did. And as we got to the top, we hadn't even settled in or anything. And this shot rang out, and it was like nothing we'd ever heard before. We didn't know what the hell this thing was. It was powerful. So we've all sort of gone down and shit, what the fuck was that? So I poked my head up to try and see if I could see what it was, and it banged straight away. And it was, you know, when it's inches away and you get that little, the whistle sound, oh, fuck. And I was like, oh, this is real close, this. So I've looked across to the other tower. And Benny, one of the other boys, has popped his head up and instantly again, bang, this round. So it's gone through a 2-meter HESCO cage of gravel, through a full 7.62 ammunition, and through a railway sleeper, and then off into the far distance. It was some sort of incredible mega weapon. We don't know what it was. But he wasn't messing, and he wasn't going to miss again. So 100 meters to the north of our position now, there was another compound. So it was decided, right, obviously we can't poke our heads up anymore because someone's going to lose a head. Get down and we'll come up with a different plan. So the plan was that individually we'd run this 100-meter sprint across to the next compound, and then hopefully one of us would be able to get a different angle and we'll be able to take this guy out. So we've all sort of stood against the wall, and cigarettes are getting passed down the line, and the lads that don't even smoke are having a go, and then eventually it's my turn. I'm sort of almost hyperventilating in the doorway going, fuck, he's going to go for me, he's going to see the sniper rifle, he's going to fucking shoot me, here we go. And that's all that was going through my head. And then I sort of had this moment where, right, fuck, I need to calm down, it's actually my turn. So I braced in the doorway and just ran, zigzagging like a madman, carrying about 7 stone of kit. But eventually burst through this compound door. We've all made it through safe, and there was nothing to worry about because a couple of minutes later an Apache was in the air and it just evaporated the place. Everything was gone. There was no more bad guy, and we could all go home and try and shake it off. But it took me a long time to shake that one off. That fear was real.
Did you ever figure out what he was shooting at you?
We didn't. No, I never heard. There was rumours, but I don't know anyone that went anywhere near it to be able to find out what it was.
Right.
Someone was saying it was an old Lee Enfield rifle.
303.
Yeah. So it could well have been. It sounded like something that had the exhaust cut off it or something. It was a beast.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like it wasn't a SVD or something. It had to be more than that.
Yeah, no, it wasn't anything like that, no.
This time of year, the pace doesn't slow down, but you still need to. The calendar's packed, the weather's changing, and your body's reminding you that it's time to rest and reset. That's where GhostBed can help. It's a family-run company founded by a team with over 20 years of mattress-making expertise. They've spent decades perfecting how to build a bed that's durable, comfortable, and engineered to help you recover. Every GhostBed mattress is made with premium materials, proven cooling technology, and their exclusive ProCore layer, a targeted support system that reinforces the center of the mattress where your body is the heaviest. It helps to keep your spine aligned and your back supported so you wake up ready to take on what's next. And GhostBed's cooling materials don't just keep you from overheating, they help regulate your temperature year-round. Each mattress comes with a 101-night sleep trial and a 20 to 25-year warranty, plus fast, free shipping. Most orders arrive in 2 to 5 days, so better rest is just around the corner. Right now, during GhostBed's holiday sale, you can get 25% off site-wide for a limited time. Just go to ghostbed.com/house and use the promo code HOUSE at checkout. That's ghostbed.com/house, promo code HOUSE. Upgrade your sleep with GhostBed, the makers of the coolest beds in the world. Some exclusions apply. See site for details. And thank you, GhostBed, for sponsoring the show. Please check out the link down in the description and support our sponsor. And then there was another chapter of your book called, it was The Longest Day.
Yeah, The Longest Day. Yeah. So this all sort of starts this chapter. A Delta Force team had actually been in the area and they'd come into a bit of trouble. In one of many injuries that the team had sustained was the chopper pilot. A few days later, we were told that there was more enemy in the area than what had been expected, and that our orders were to go and kick this hornet's nest and see how many Taliban there actually were in this town. We found out. We definitely found out. So this job started it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. We all got onto Chinooks, and we're flown through the night sky. And just as we've arrived on the target area, they were waiting for us. The Taliban, they must have known that we were coming, because these Dushka aircraft weapons started going off. There's RPGs flying at us. Rounds are pinging off the side of the Chinooks. And we're just sat there. I'm sat there holding this useless sniper rifle thinking, fucking, I don't like this. It was so uncomfortable just having to rely on someone else to keep us safe. It just felt so foreign. So, the tail guns and the side guns on the Chinook are going like fuck, and they're sending thousands of rounds down. And they managed, everything quieting down a little bit, and they managed to drop us in the middle of this mud, freshly ploughed, wet field that was like mud up to your knees. Every step's heavy, the fields, those ones that you get stuck in. Eventually it all calmed down and we managed to get ourselves out of this field. And then we had 3 pre-designated compounds. We were going to go in a triangular formation, take over these compounds and see what happened. So the sun had just started to come up at this point. We've entered our compound, made it safe, and I've climbed onto the rooftop. As I've done this, everyone around me is filling sandbags and bashing holes through walls and making firing points and all this sort of stuff. We know it's going to be a bit of a tasty day, so everyone's sort of getting prepared for that and getting ammunition out and ready and whatnot. I've then noticed in the far distance a motorbike going from left to right, and it's got one guy on it. And then it's got 2 guys on it, and then it's got 1 guy on it. And I'm oh, yeah, okay. And then I saw a minibus. It had just the driver, and it was full of fighting age males. Comes back, just the driver. And then obviously the Taliban were being dropped in fire positions. And this was happening everywhere around us. We didn't know this, but a couple of 100 Taliban were actually moving into position to start this day. So I've called down to the boss on the ground, who's on the radio below me, and said, I'm going to let loose a warning shot and let this guy know that I've seen them, because I don't want them getting the upper hand, letting their plan be as good as it can possibly be. I want to disrupt this early. So I've let loose a round, and as I've done that, this crescendo of noise just erupted. It was like, sort of like 5 p.m. in a jungle when everything just goes and comes to life. It was like that. It was intense. RPGs and machine gun fire and AK-47 fire just came from everywhere. The rounds were smashing into the walls and chipping the walls of this compound where we were, and below me were fighting like lions. They were sort of managing to keep the Taliban back from these walls, because there was all these rat runs and little tiny alleyways that it was a maze basically up to the back of our compounds. So they're keeping them back. And then I've noticed these rounds are getting really, really close to my head. And so someone's clearly aiming for me here. So I've had a look around and I've spotted this guy. And at this point, I'm 21 years old. I've looked, and this guy was probably same age as me, maybe a couple of years younger. And he's got an AK-47 and he's firing bursts of rounds at my head. And this became the turning point for me. This is where I was so angry. I'd never been so angry in my life. And a switch flipped in my head where I started to then blame this guy and the guys that were firing from around the corner. I started to blame them for the death of my friend from the sniper course. And his face just kept coming into my head, and I made it really, really personal. And it got to this point where I wanted this guy to suffer. And I sort of cast my mind back to, now this is 750 meters away, so not, nothing out of the ordinary for a sniper. cast my mind back to the 10-pence pieces on the targets and just thought, yeah, I'm going to shoot him in the throat. Because I didn't want it to be instant. I didn't want a headshot. I wanted revenge. So I let loose this round. It's hit him in the throat. He's then dropped his weapon and he's kind of holding himself together a little bit and starts calling out to behind these two buildings that were over to his left. And as he's done that, another one has come out, fired a burst of rounds at me. And I've then fired and took him out. And then another one came. I've done the same again. And another one finally, a fifth one came, fired a bunch of rounds, and I've took him out as well. And then, so this went on for like 13 hours this day.
How long do you think, when you shot those 5 guys, how long a time period do you think that is? Because it sounds like you were racking the bolt just going to town.
Yeah, that's how it was. Yeah. Like it was probably the space of a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they were sort of, it felt like forever. It felt like everything had slowed down into this moment that just kept me in this little vortex, to be honest. It was such a surreal moment. And then after that happened, after this sort of whole day had calmed down, the Chinooks came back, picked us up, and we went back to Bastion then, where we had a couple of days there, get our kit ready, and then it was time for the next job, which was Operation Moshtarak, which was it went along with Marja, wasn't it? The Marja Marines, it was all part of the same operation. So at this point, I've started to notice I'm having nightmares, and my thoughts aren't the same as they used to be. My temperament is different, and I'm getting extremely irritable and angry. But I've kept my mouth shut because, I'm not going to leave these guys. At this point, one of our snipers, he's been medically evacuated back to the UK after an incident with a helicopter, injured him. He ended up falling out the back of a Chinook from about 20 foot high onto a pile of rocks. No, nasty. He's fine now. There's nothing wrong with him now. But that was him home. So we were spread out even thinner across the grounds. And then off we went. So my start to Operation Moshtarak was jumping onto a Black Hawk. And we were the lead aircraft going in. And as we did, an RPG has been fired up at us, and the aircraft's banked, and the slide doors had been open, and I was sat on the edge, and there wasn't enough seats. And as it's gone, I fell out the bloody door. I fell out, and one of the guys managed to lean over and quickly grab my kit and yank me back in. So I've had a heart attack on the way in there, and it's not even daytime yet. It's still dark. So I've got in there. I've got a bit of a sweat on. And then we've landed in this misty field next to this canal. This sleepy town, what we thought we were landing into, turned out it wasn't at all. It was a mega stronghold. And very quickly after us, the aircraft all left. And this day, by the way, was something like 82 helicopters doing wave after wave of dropping troops into the area. So thousands of troops were being moved constantly that morning. And all of a sudden a tannoy speaker turned on and someone started speaking in Pashto. And obviously we couldn't understand what they were saying. So our interpreter, Mike, he started translating what they were saying. And they were saying that anyone that lives in this town needs to leave or join them in the fight. There's going to be the biggest of holy battles. All this sort of stuff. And it was a daunting message to hear, but one that a quick cigarette and a laughing joke would shook it off. So the operation had begun, and the locals had moved out of this town. They were jumping on anything that moved, and off they went. So we'd taken over a compound at this point. And just as the other operation, everyone's filling sandbags and creating defensive positions and stuff, because we were going to be operating here now for the next few months. I've been on the rooftop, and all of a sudden, it's like crack, crack, crack. AK-47 burst straight over our heads, and I thought, oh, here we go. And then an RPG has come straight after it, set to airburst, and it's just popped straight above our fob. So this has obviously got everyone running around on the ground, kind of, what the fuck's going on? So I'm correlating down to the ground to the bosses, what's going on there, relaying it over the radios. And I'm talking and saying, I'm going to lose this guy in a minute. Anyway, it started. We'd been there for a few hours. I ended up taking this guy out. And then everything went quiet for days. It was almost like it was a bit of a test, see what they could get away with. And the answer was nothing. On the other flip side of this, behind us, sharing our compound with the French Foreign Legion, and they were working to the south. So we'd very quickly established that we weren't messing around. We weren't playing games. So the tour progressed, and as it's done that, my mental health has started to decline. But again, quietly, I've not said anything. I've just people have started making comments that I was in the middle of the night, I'd be screaming in my sleep, I'd be fighting in my sleep and things. And I'd started to write these poems. I didn't really understand what it was at the time, but it was my subconscious, I think, just trying to alleviate some of this weight that I was feeling and express some things that I couldn't, or I felt I couldn't say to other people. I was too scared of the stigma and the repercussions of what happens if I do say something. So I continued on, which then brings us to another story in the book. The chapter's called The 1 Mile Shots, which was probably my most snipery moment of the whole tour. This was the moment that was very much on my highlight reel of things that I'd achieved as a sniper. We'd taken over a compound, and we'd been there for a few months at this point. And it was all right, we were getting into firefights and the usual sort of stuff, but it wasn't anything too heavy in our compound where we particularly were. And then a couple of clicks away, one of our units had come under quite heavy fire. And I'm just sat there playing cards with the guys at this point. Nothing exciting's going on. A few people reading magazines, and the message came through to the radio that they might be heading in this direction. They're not showing me how many Taliban there were, but they might be retreating towards us. So could I jump on the roof and have a little look in the distance? So where our compound was, you've got us and then this next town or this next group of buildings there, and then nothing but open poppy field all the way for a mile. So it was perfect, really. There was not really that many opportunities for a shot to be made like that. So I've jumped on the roof. A couple of guys have gone up there with me to sort of look for rear protection and things like that. As I'm looking, I wasn't really expecting to see anything, and then I saw some movement between two of the buildings, and there I saw them plain as day. 3 Taliban, AK-47s by the sides, and they're walking in single file. And I thought this was probably due to the IED threat in the area, which was massive. There were so many IEDs, it was ridiculous. What I did notice as well, though, as I was observing them, was the guy in the center seemed to be commanding the one to the front and the rear. They looked like they were his protection, almost his protection order. So devised a plan. Now my mind at this point was different to anything it had ever been before. It was callous and it was quite dark. At this point, what would later be described as an addiction to squeezing that trigger had sort of took a hold of me. And this campaign of revenge, I suppose, that I'd created in my mind. So I decided that what I was going to do was I was going to take out the insurgent at the rear, and then I was going to take out the one in the front, and then I'd take out the commander last. And the idea was to create chaos and fear. It was the one mega tool that we had as snipers was the fear that we could cast into the enemy. So I very much wanted to do that. So between me and my potential targets were 3 separate directions of wind. It was a nightmare. So I had one coming in from the left, one coming in from the right, and another one coming in from the left down towards them. So it's taken 11 calculations in the end for me to do this, and I am no good at maths, no good. So I did it on a calculator. I had to have this little calculator. I go, right, here we go. So I've put all my clicks in, and at a mile away, the Schmidt and Bender scope that we had, it wasn't made to go that far. So I was actually having to aim off the target to land the on, which was the first time I'd ever attempted anything like this. I'd only read about it and read the theory side of it, So it was quite a big moment. So I'd taken my helmet, my body armor off, and I'd got my cap on, my shooting cap, and I've got my force multiplier t-shirt on, and I've got comfortable. Oh, right, okay, here we go. If I'm going to do this, it's got to be now, because the sun was dipping and it was very much last light. There was a few minutes to go. And I've lay there and I've got into my bubble. So I talk a lot in the book about the in depth about what it was like squeezing that trigger, the thoughts at the time, the thoughts before, how it felt physically. And I've got into this calm, meditative state of what it's like, obviously pulling the trigger for those distances. And I missed. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe I missed. I thought, I've done all these calculations right. So very quickly then, it's been a kind of off-the-cuff job where I've chambered the next round and sent it straight away. Same guy, same target at the rear, and this time it's hit him. It's hit him in the stomach, and it's folded him in half, and he's gone down. So with this, the front insurgent and the commander have then turned round, and as the realization of that is set in, I've sent the next round for the front insurgent. He's gone down, and then it turns out the guy in the centre was a Taliban commander. He's then run, and as he's run, I've sent my next round, and that's gone through his torso. And all of a sudden, the radio lit up, and an American Apache pilot had been in the air and witnessed the whole thing. And he called down saying, "Tell that sniper that was some good shooting." So I was like, "Oh, thank you very much, cheers." But then after that, I climbed down off the roof, and all the guys on the ground around me were sort of like, "Oh my God, well done." That was a mile away. Couldn't believe how fucking far away I just made these shots. I had the interpreter telling me, "Oh my God, that's a Taliban commander." The net was going absolutely insane, and my world just closed in. It's like I had tunnel vision, and everything became really muffled. I could hardly understand what people were saying, and I couldn't talk. I just didn't speak. It was like my whole existence, I was closing down. I walked around the corner and just started smoking one after the other and just replaying these events, but I wasn't in control of it. It just out of nowhere happened. I had no idea what the fuck was going on. No idea. And then the following day, another contact happened, and that was it. I had nothing left. I'd broken. I'd reached breaking point and gone past it, and then people around me.
Gotcha.
Okay, yes, something's not right here. Something needs to be done, and then it was.
Something I'd like to kind of make clear to people, and I'd like to hear your view also, is there's a difference between being a sniper and being an infantryman, that in the sense when you're in an infantry platoon and you get into a firefight, it's very chaotic. It's not totally clear who shot who, what, it can be very difficult to pin that down. And so after a mission, like guys can kind of like brag like, "Oh yeah, I killed that guy." But deep down, everyone knows maybe they did, maybe they didn't. We don't really know, and so it becomes this more like shared experience of like the platoon killed those guys. Whereas as a sniper, it's like, damn well you fired on that guy and you killed that guy and you did that. And, the combat you're describing to me sounds completely reasonable, and you were fighting enemy combatants who were armed. There's nothing to be ashamed about, but nonetheless, you as an individual have to find a way to live with that, right?
Yeah, very much so. It was a heavy burden to bear, to be honest. It wasn't really something that I'd thought too much about. I never thought I've thought about doing it. I thought about what it's going to be like. I never thought about the aftermath of what that would be like. And it was very personal. You know, I've described in the past, and I've done in the book, where I would see the face of the person. Never, you know, like you're talking about there, normal infantry might see a movement or a shadow or a general direction splash of where everyone else's rounds are going. Whereas I would be able to look and see these people in the face and be able to tell whether they were trained. Is this a trained individual, or is this someone that's had $50 and given a weapon and said, go and shoot in that direction, you know? And there were some of them were those type of people. Others were trained and they were moving right. You know, you can tell, can't you? You can tell if someone's had training, the way they're moving, the way they're holding the weapon. So I never had the worry of saying, oh, you know, maybe it was me, maybe it was, you know, it was them or me. That I could never really settle with, because I never saw it as them or me. It was never going to be me. It was always going to be them. So and
that's doing your job, by the way, I should point out. Like, it's supposed to be them.
yeah, that's the aim of the game. Yeah. So it was something that I couldn't, in the end. It was almost like I lowered this wall of emotion before going. I fin off. I didn't want to miss people at home. I didn't want any distractions. I didn't want this distraction of thinking that way before having to pull that trigger. I was very closed down, very much in a sniper's mindset, and an angry sniper at that. So when I let this wall down of feeling the type of way and thinking that these people were responsible for the death of my friend, I believe that is the moment where I let empathy in. And then from that point, it was like a drip that just kept going and going and getting bigger and bigger until I was feeling into their pain. I was feeling into the look of horror or the look of absolute fear that I saw on their faces. I started to imagine, oh my fucking God, how terrifying must that have been? You know, watching that every time one of your friends comes out, he gets killed and then you're the only one left. How frightening would that have been? It must have been a very horrendous experience. And having then, on the flip side of that, being shot at by a sniper, where we never spotted this guy, we had no idea where he was, and how terrifying that was. I started to put all these things together and then thinking, okay, they are the enemy, but they're also a human being. And this is where my PTSD became complex. And it wasn't until probably 10 years later that I actually managed to figure out what was going on. Well, I didn't, my therapist did. I'm not sure if you've heard of a moral injury.
Right, yeah.
That was something, it was like a light bulb moment for me, which, you know, our core values are created as children. And as much as I wanted to be doing this job, my core values of taking a life and it being that personal, it just didn't correlate. It didn't go well together. And that I believe was where it all started to unravel.
And that the tail end of that deployment, you said that this PTSD issue really came to a head. What was there something a final sort of catalyzing moment that led your chain of command to realize, like, hey, we need to get Ted some help?
Yeah, so people had noticed that I was doing these poems. I'd also been drawing my nightmares, which were happening at this point. They were no longer dreams, they were nightmares. So I'd had to get them out of me. I'm this creative person. I've always sort of drawn or written music and done all sorts of stuff, but it was just coming out of me. I had to let it out somehow, but silently. And everyone had noticed. And then we have this thing here called trauma risk management, where you sit down, there's a questionnaire, which is sort of numbers 1 to 10. So this guy has sat me down and given me these tests and asked me these questions. And he turned around and said, he'd never seen scores this high.
Oh,
so it was like, fuck, so it needs to be done like today, like now, right now. So I'm still on the front line at this point. So a massive vehicle has been sent to collect me, which meant a patrol of blokes had to come out, get me, put me in this vehicle, take me back to a different forward operating base, and then a Chinook has come in and took me back to Bastion. So it was a big deal. But I'm so glad that they did.
Yeah.
Very glad. Once that had happened, it was almost like this weight kind of fell off me a little bit. I was instantly in front of a psychiatric nurse, but I was let down, to be honest. They told me that I was tired and suffering with a bit of an addiction to squeezing the trigger. I should just go and work in the stores, have a couple of weeks there, try and get some sleep, and I'll be okay. So, okay, smashing, off I go. That's what I'll do. So I went to work in the stores. It was humiliating.
You mean like logistics, like handing out boots and uniforms to soldiers?
Yeah, that shit.
Oh man,
it was.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Can you imagine? So as I'm doing this dog shit job, one of our blokes got killed. Several got injured. And one of my very, very close mates, he was catastrophically injured, losing eyesight and limbs, multiple limbs. I've then received the bag of his kit working in the stores. I've received this plastic bag, and I'm like, what the fuck? Seen his name on it.
Fuck.
Oh, man. It was a shit moment. So then we had about 10 days or so left on the tour at this point. So it was right at the end. It was fucking shit. But then one of the bosses, well, he was a platoon sergeant. He said, look, this is shit. We've got 10 days to go, but I need a group of guys for a volunteer operation in a bit of a shit area. So straight away, get me out there. And I managed to just fucking lie my way through doctor's appointments and nurses and all sorts of stuff. I was absolutely fine. You're right. Oh my God, you were so right. I was just tired. I needed to work in the stores. Fixed. Get me back out there. So I was allowed out back on the front line with the condition that I didn't take my sniper rifle, which annoyed me. But it is what it is. I don't know the reason for it. There's speculation, but I don't know.
Yeah, they were afraid you were going to be the sniper and Saving Private Ryan, like reciting verses from the Bible up in the bell tower.
Exactly that. That's pretty much what I've heard. I get that dangerous man home. So yeah, that happened. That 10-day op ended in a couple of Taliban digging in an IED for us on our main supply route. They got vaporized by a Predator missile, and then 2 days later, I'm back in a pub in my hometown, completely naked, stood on a table with my parents and all my family around me, just drinking pints of vodka and trying to pretend that I'm normal. And I don't know, yeah.
Damn, so Ted Shirley knows how to party.
Yeah. But I had a bank full of money and just a desire for drink.
Yeah. To a point that it gets unhealthy. I get it. So, tell us kind of about, like you said, it sounds like it was, maybe a decade-long process of kind of processing these experiences. What was that like from, being drunk in the pub 2 days back home to, recovering, I guess?
It was a very long drawn out process. I was drinking then heavily, relying on it as a crutch. I wasn't dependent on it, but I used it to make excuses for my behavior. I'd go out and get into fights a lot, sometimes to win, sometimes more often than not to lose, just to sort of feel this, I don't know, this pain that I felt I deserved. I felt a lot of guilt and shame for what I'd done. And I was really uncomfortable on what we call Civvy Street. I just couldn't deal with it. All I wanted to do was get back to Afghanistan, which we were going to be doing the following year. And then one day everything came to a head. I'd been having panic attacks and flashbacks and things, but I didn't know what these things were. I had no idea, and I just played them off and still managed to keep everything quiet until one day I was living with my parents and my sister at this point, I, in a blackout rage, ended up flying across the table and attacking my dad. And we've got a fantastic relationship. I don't remember doing it. Didn't know I was doing it at the time. And that scared the life out of me until I came round and we're on the floor. And I've kind of let go and gone, what the fuck? Grabbed my kit bag, jumped in the car, drove back to camp. And then the following morning, I've gone to my platoon sergeant and said, look, this is what's been happening. It's been under the radar, but it's gone a bit too far now. I didn't mind fighting strangers and, you know, things like that. But this is where I draw the line. Very luckily, there was a psychiatric nurse in camp at the time. My first thought was, why? Who's lost the marbles in camp? I'd never heard of it before. I'd never heard of PTSD before. I'd not heard the term mental health before in my fucking life. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was happening in my brain. I just knew that I was really angry, and then if I got in trouble, it felt better for a little bit. Then got in trouble with the law, and things were rapidly going downhill. This then ended with me starting to see psychiatrists once a week, getting given ridiculous amounts of medication, still in the army at this point. And then on a cold, rainy day in November 2012, I decided that I was going to kill myself. I couldn't take this anymore. So I've driven off in my car, parked up next to a river and slit my wrists. Immediately realised I don't want to fucking die. I want to get better. I just don't want this. I don't want to die.
You want to feel like that every day. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like this moment where I just woke up for a second and I was back to this depressed state, but just for a second, I felt alive. That then very quickly ended up, though, with me spending 3 months in a psychiatric ward, locked up on the other side of the country, no contact from anybody. It was a very tough time. I then managed to get out of the hospital after 3 months and was a few months later medically discharged from service. So that's when I sort of found myself just flailing in the wind a little bit. I had no identity and no job. My closest friends and the people closest to me in my life were now gone. And I was lost, very lost. Luckily, I received a letter. And the army had arranged a therapist appointment with the NHS, so the National Health Service over here. I went for a few months and started to get better, but then this niggly voice in my head started to tell me that I wasn't worth this guy's time and somebody else is in a worse state than me. Someone else should be having this appointment, not me. And I imagine he saw it a lot, and I now know that a lot of people do it. So I withdrew from therapy, but I'm glad that I did. It didn't feel right, but it didn't feel wrong either at the time. It allowed me the time to go and travel the world, which is then what I did for the next few years, starting in Asia and then Australia and then Canada, America, Mexico. It was a great few years.
Just
I found myself
just backpacking around.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. It was amazing. There were 6 of us that we went to Calgary and bought a motorhome. We called them Marge, and it got driven all the way down to Nicaragua through California. It was an epic trip. It was good. So you can read all about that in the book. Marge, she was a beauty. So while I was doing all this, I was still struggling, but I was doing all these amazing things. I was getting up to as much stuff as I could. But I felt better, but I was just distracted from it all, to be honest, with drink and partying and all sorts of adventures. I then returned to the UK and my PTSD came back tenfold. It kicked my ass. So that's when I then managed to get back in touch with my old therapist, but there was a 12-month waiting list.
Oh, shit.
So So I was quite lost at this point. I thought, what the fuck am I going to do? How am I going to get through this next 12 months? So for a few years prior to this, I'd already started to meditate and sort of look into the spiritual side of life. Nothing religious, just the idea of meditation and wellness and mindfulness. So I lent into that. And obviously, while backpacking, I was introduced to, how do we put it? Let's put it as plant medicines.
Yeah.
So cannabis being one, magic mushrooms or psilocybin being the other one, and then DMT would be in the third one. And they didn't cure me by any means. I have to sort of be careful when I say this, but I really do believe that they have got a strong place in giving people the ability to recover from these things. They allowed me to do work internally that I wouldn't have normally been able to do. They allowed me to face things that were horrendous memories in incredible detail without becoming overwhelmed. As well as the idea that my mood was lifted from cannabis. I was able to sleep better. My mood was stabilized rather than having these huge dips and troughs. It was, my life was starting to feel manageable. Then add therapy. So this was then 2 years of weekly therapy sessions. Combined that with the plant medicines, and it was a very interesting journey, to say the least. Let's say that. The idea of going to therapy terrified me at first. I thought that people would think I was weak, or that I wasn't meant for the job that I was doing, and all these sort of stigma things that are just nonsense. Just absolute nonsense. That's why I've written this book, is to just try and blow all this stigma stuff out of the water. Because people can read about a sniper doing all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then in the same book, they can read about all this depression and sadness that I felt. Then, hopefully it'll show the full spectrum of a human experience. That's what I'm after.
Yeah. I know this is like a long process. There wasn't like one moment that like, oh, I'm recovered now, but sort of like, what was that sort of path to recovery? I mean, was it going back into therapy and having a consistent sort of traction there?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it was having these weekly therapy sessions, and then firstly being taught techniques that would enable me to ground myself and cope after panic attacks, or sometimes even prevent having a panic attack. Breathing exercises and these sorts of things, and grounding techniques. That was a big part of it at first. I needed something that would enable me to calm down. Yeah. So once that was addressed, it was then CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy. This addresses our behaviors, really. So a dead simplified version would be something happens, our brains think a certain way, we then act in a certain action. So for me, things like road rage, for instance, someone cuts you up on a road, you start screaming and shouting. Next minute, I'm out of the car chasing this car down the road, which happened multiple times. It was ridiculous. I was this unhinged madman that was just a little ball of anger. Horrendous, completely different to who I am. It completely changed me as a person. So this CBT therapy enabled me to address how I dealt with anger, how I dealt with irritability and things like that. So that was the next phase. And then we moved on to something called EMDR. I'm not sure if you've heard of this, eye movement desensitization and reprogramming. So this is where, for me, there's various ways you can do it, but I had a light bar in front of me, and this light would go from left to right, right to left, almost like sort of hypnotism kind of thing. And what that does, again, is a very simple version. When we sleep at night and we go into REM sleep, deep sleep, our memories and thoughts are processed from left to right, and they go back left to right, left to right, left to right, and then they're stored away in a long-term memory. Traumatic memories, imagine there's a clock in your brain that puts all these files away in the correct places. These thoughts or experiences are too traumatic for them to be able to deal with. So these pieces of paper are just left to fly around willy-nilly. So what EMDR does with the left to right eye movement, it imitates that practice.
Interesting.
So while being awake, You can move your eyes from left to right, think about these things. And what would happen, it wouldn't be so much a guided thing. The therapist would very much, most of the time, be quiet and just listen to where my mind would go. And it would go from things that happened in Afghan to a childhood memory. Sometimes good ones, sometimes bad ones. Nothing ever really bad as a child ever happened to me. But it was strange. It was almost like a map of where my mind was working. And then it would go for on 60 seconds. I'd say report what I'd seen in my mind, and then I'd go back into it, ease back into it. That correlated a lot for me. It freed me of the shackles. The emotions that were attached to these memories were no longer there. So it enabled me now. Like, for instance, there's never in a million years I'd have been able to sit here and talk to you in detail about these things that had happened and that happened in the book. I'd never been able to write the book. But now I can think back at these events in the detail that's required, and it doesn't affect me. It doesn't mean I don't feel any type of way or I have no remorse for the loss of a life or anything like that, but I have no overwhelming emotions or nothing like that. I'm not going to go away and have nightmares tonight or be thinking about it all day and night.
Right. It's not out of control anymore.
No, I own those memories now. They very much do not own any space in my mind. If they belong to me. So it was learning that. At this point now in the therapy, I began to learn that this could actually go away. This could actually really disappear now. I'd always been told for the past 10 or 12 years that I could only learn to live with my symptoms, and that I thought people just went about their lives with PTSD, just having PTSD and shaking babies to death and things. And do you know what I mean? I just thought it was this thing that, you're a veteran with PTSD. Unlucky, mate. Like it was this life sentence.
Right.
That I just
Sorry, bro.
My wife was not going to stand for that. No way. So, so I refused to give up. And my therapist was very sort of encouraged by this, and we worked really, really hard. And in the end, I was able to get rid of PTSD. I don't have PTSD anymore. I don't have any issues whatsoever. And back when I was at my worst point, I would have loved to have heard someone say that. There was no one I'd ever heard say that. There was no hope.
Yeah.
Now, I am quite literally here, and I've written this book. I've done this whole thing for hope, for people to be able to just hear the message that you can dedicate your life to change, and you can change your life.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not here to be some sort of like salesman, cheesy person, but it's a message that I'm just so... people need to hear it. I've lost too many people to suicide, and everyone has. And it can all be fixed with talking. I didn't do anything magical. I talked. That was it. Talk to someone that listened once a week.
How did the idea for the book come about? When did that start to percolate in the back of your mind?
There was little diaries and journals that I'd started writing while in Afghan. Again, a way of letting these bits and pieces out. So I had bits of paper floating around from that. And then with all the therapy came a lot of homework. So a lot of paperwork. So I've got a couple of folders over there that are just filled with notes. So a lot of it comes from that. A lot of it's almost like a fly on the wall. Watch this happy young man go to war, get fucked up by it, and then go therapy and see what happens in therapy. It's I don't know. It was unnerving at first having this book come out, so I felt quite vulnerable and open to the world. But that is the whole point, is to show that that's all right. So yeah.
What has been the response to the book since it's been out?
Amazing. The messages of support that I've had have been incredible, and more importantly to me, the messages and comments of how it's helped other people. People have been able to see someone that's in their shoes. I've had a message from somebody that's currently in hospital suffering exactly what I was going through. And I was able to just spend 2 minutes talking to them, give them a little bit of advice, and it's helped. So that's what it's all about now for me. Obviously, I'd like to make a living out of it as well, so everyone go buy the book.
And it's available now. People can find it on Amazon or in the bookshop.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Barnes and Noble, is it the big one over there?
That's another one.
Yeah, they've got it. Yeah, but Amazon's the main one. Yeah, let's get it up those ranks.
Yeah, we'll have links down in the description for people who want to go and check it out. And you've also gotten into doing some public speaking.
Yeah, so this is something that I've just the past few weeks started to do now. It was never anything I intended on doing, but it's kind of gone hand in hand with writing the book, and I'm loving it. I am really enjoying it. It's very much based around the book, but a little bit more of an in-depth look of how PTSD happens and how people can, in a way, protect themselves from it, expect what it can bring, but in the end, how you can get rid of it.
Anything else that you're working on today that you'd like to talk about, or anything I haven't asked that you'd really like to get into?
Nothing in particular. No, I have started writing another book. I was in the very early stages, just because I miss the writing process.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm starting a fiction version, a fiction sniper story next.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. And I'll read it when it comes out.
Shop near you in about 10 years.
Yeah, I get it. Anywhere else we can direct people? Do you have it? Are you on social media at all? Anything you want to tell people?
Yeah. Instagram, you can find me at Ted Shirley Author, and TikTok as well. I'm on TikTok. I do little bits of what I like to call Ted's Tips, which are mental health tips on there, which is ted.shirley.
Awesome. I mean, it sounds great, and I really hope that between your speaking and your book that this gets into the hands and into the minds of veterans out there. It is an important message.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you so much as well for helping me with your platform.
Anytime.
The audience.
So thank you, Ted. Appreciate it. Again, the book is Afghanistan Sniper by Ted Shirley. We'll have links down in the description for you to go and check out the book. And thank you for joining us. Hope everyone has a great holiday season, and we will see you next time. Hey guys, I want to tell all of you today about a new newsletter that we're launching that encompasses both the Team House podcast, the Eyes On podcast, and the High Side news outlet, which I run with Sean Naylor. The newsletter is going to be once a week. It's going to come into your inbox, and you're going to get the most current podcasts on Eyes On and the Team House, and whatever's topical or current on the High Side. So it's another way for us to get the information out to you, as social media algorithms are pretty iffy and you never really know what you're going to get. So this is a once a week email. It'll slide into your inbox, and it will have, the greatest hits of that week.
It's really good, man. I'm checking it out.
The website for it is teamhousepodcast.kit.com/join. teamhousepodcast.kit.com/join. You go there and you enter into your email list, or you enter your email into the little thing on the website, and you're good to go. And that'll be it. So we really appreciate your support and hope you'll consider signing up.
Where's the link?
The link will also be down in the description if you're looking for it there.
And that's teamhousepodcast.kit, KIT, Kilo India Tango.com/join.